Welcome back to the Lowdown, everybody. Coming up on today's show, we are ranking every completed transfer so far from this January. Today, we talk about whether Omar Marmoush will be a success at Man City.
I think that would have been a perfect signing for Arsenal.
Whether Trevoh Chalobah has a long-term future at Chelsea.
I think he can lay a really good claim to being Levi Colwell's long-term partner potentially.
And why we aren't sure about Donyell Malen to Aston Villa. This signing maybe needs a bit more time than people think it does. Hello and welcome back to the Lowdown, everybody. And joining myself and Mikey McCubbin today, we have Arsenal superfan, content superstar, Robbie Lyle. Robbie,
superstar.
Thank you so much for coming on the Lowdown today.
No, thank you for having me. It's good to be back on.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Today we are ranking every completed deal of the January transfer window so far. We've got 4 categories for them. Love it, needs time, not sure, not a fan. Before we get into it, Robbie, are you a little bit concerned that as we record this, Arsenal haven't completed a deal?
Very concerned. I mean, I know how difficult January is, but I'm a bit shocked that we haven't done at least one forward deal so far, especially when you looked at January and the games that we had coming up right at the start. The fact that Saka, he got his injury, I think it was the 21st of December. He had to have surgery on a hamstring, 4 to 6 months, right? You know that player's going to be out. So I thought Arsenal would have brought someone in early because at that time, you looked at the games coming up, Newcastle in the Carabao Cup semi-final, Man United in the FA Cup, Tottenham in the North London derby, and Villa. I mean, I thought they would have had somebody in place for those games. They haven't. And then we still... ahead of us now, we've got Champions League games, 2 very important Champions League games. I'm really surprised that we haven't brought someone in yet. And our bench has looked thin when it comes to forward players.
Yeah, absolutely, it has. And if you guys want to hear more about Arsenal's search for signings this month, go check out the transfer show that dropped earlier this week on Sky Sports Premier League. But let's get into completed deals. And Robbie, I'm coming back to you on this because Man City have done a lot of business this month so far. What have you made of the fact Man City have spent so much this month? And does it make you, as an Arsenal fan, a little bit worried that they could make a little push for second, let's say, in the back half of the season?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've all written Manchester City off for winning the title. I still don't think they'll have enough for winning the title, but I definitely think they are going to make a push. And they are always a team that in the second half of the season, they come with a push. You know what I mean? It's almost like they set their team up to, like, have to manage the season in stages. And the players that they're bringing in, you know what I mean, they're not messing about. You know, that's why I'm surprised with Arsenal, that we haven't adopted a similar approach, but they're not messing about. But I think they made some fundamental mistakes at the start of, in the summer, not replacing Alvarez and things like that. I think they're trying to address that. But, yeah, everybody should be worried, you know what I mean? 9.5-year contract for Haaland, and then, like, all these deals coming in, Marmoush and that, yeah, it's worrying.
It is worrying. I mean, Mikey, from a guy that's watched a lot of Bundesliga football in the last few years, and Marmoush, I mean, in particular this year, this is a real guy that's arriving full of form and full of confidence to try and rescue Man City's season.
Yeah, massively. And maybe that's what they need in the short term, at least. Man City is just someone who is, you know, a little bit, at least compared to the likes of KDB and Bernardo Silva, a little bit younger, probably a bit hungrier. You know, someone who's arriving, you know, on a big deal, you know, massively inflated fee. So there's a lot of pressure on Marmoush in many ways, but at the same time, you know, he comes as a statement signing, you know, having arrived at Eintracht Frankfurt for free from Wolfsburg just 18 months ago. I mean, the rise is absolutely huge. And before he went to Frankfurt on that free deal, you know, I don't think he'd hit double figures, you know, in a league season before. And now coming in, you know, only Mo Salah has scored and assisted more than him this season in Europe's top 5 leagues. Pretty amazing that 2 Egyptian players kind of head Europe's top 5 leagues in that sense. Yeah, it's certainly exciting for the player. I think it's, you know, is it exactly what Man City need? I'm not so sure. For that price, I know it's a January signing, so it's always going to be inflated, but the fee still, yeah, it dumbfounds me a little bit for a player who has only really come into the form he's been in the last 18 months, but maybe this is, City just striking while the iron's hot, and maybe it will work out.
Eintracht Frankfurt, the Brighton of German football. The way they do these players, they Kolo Muani was another one, isn't it? Jovic. They are these players for they get them for literally Haller.
Yeah.
These players for literally nothing, and then they sell him for like millions.
Yeah. It's amazing with Marmoush, because Marmoush was brought in that same summer that Muani was sold to PSG for what I think was it 95 million euros.
Yeah.
Like I mean, Frankfurt, especially in terms of forwards, Frankfurt's transfer business has been amazing. So it's hard to say, but then if Pep likes a player, then and especially a player who's around 24, 25, it's not like they're just some wonder kid, a bit of an unknown entity, then you kind of trust him. And he's also, he can play in multiple different positions. He has played in a front two mainly this season, but can also play as a left inside forward. Can play behind the striker as well. Played as a lone striker a bit more last season as well. So I think there are options there. But yeah, as you allude to there, Robbie, like Frankfurt are just amazing at getting huge fees for strikers, and this feels no different. It feels like too much money. Then again, Man City have been relatively frugal in the market, have been very good at selling in the last few years. I know they're, under this huge investigation at the moment, and we're expecting to, that to be concluded sooner rather than later.
Or at least the verdict before appeals.
Sorry, yeah. But in terms of like over the last, 2-3 years, I don't think Man City have any PSR concerns. Look at the business that they've done in defence that we'll get onto in a little bit as well. Like it feels like they're kind of cashing in on that. And, like in some ways they've got nothing to lose. Like Pep, I can't see Pep signing another contract after this one. There's one more rebuild with Pep at the helm. So, yeah, why not spend the money that they've been saving in that sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think it's quite interesting, the timing. Like, you bring in Marmoush and a couple of weeks later, or around the same time, Haaland signs this new deal. Because Haaland, obviously, 9.5-year deal for Haaland's amazing from a City perspective, given the worries about him going to Real Madrid over the last 18 months or so. But Marmoush has mainly played centrally in a counter-attacking system. I think Eintracht Frankfurt averaged less than 50% of the ball this season. And he scored so many amazing goals in the counter-attack. He's got really good awareness when running at high speed. He takes great free kicks and corners, which is a nice bonus as well. But he's just not going to get the same space at Man City. And you look on the left wing as well. Doku had a fabulous game against Ipswich at the weekend as well and looked sort of invigorated by the challenge. You've still got Savinho there. Grealish needs to work out, although I do expect Grealish probably to be sold in the summer. So there's a lot of competition on the left, and you're going up against Erling Haaland, who, when fit, will start. So I'm not as hot on this as others. I mean, where are you guys ranking it? So we've got love it, needs time, not sure, not a fan. I might be tempted to go with not sure. Ooh. Robbie, where would you put it?
I think I'm putting it unfortunately, in the love it.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I think it would have been a perfect signing for Arsenal. Right? And I think the fact that he can play multiple positions, and I think ever since they lost Alvarez, because Alvarez played a really important part.
Massive.
At City, they haven't had that other player that can come. What if something happens to Haaland? You know what I mean? They've been very lucky, very fortunate with Haaland, but the load of games that are coming on and the load of important games that come on in the second half of the season, I think, it's a good season, a good signing. I really do. I'm in the love it category.
Fair, Mikey.
Interesting. I was going to say needs time. So yeah, we're all in disagreement there. So
let's put it out there to the audience.
Maybe we'll put it like somewhere in there. Maybe we could put it needs time because it's like somewhere between the two of you. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? And I agree. Like the Haaland backup is massive in that sense. I do think he's probably a more well-rounded player than Alvarez. So if you're looking at it as like, the Alvarez replacement they should have just got in the summer, then, he brings something different, especially to the way that Man City play now. He's probably a bit more suited to it. So yeah, we'll see. And it just depends, doesn't it? Like if Phil Foden's in the kind of form that he's in, like where exactly does he fit in this starting lineup?
Okay, there we have it. We're all in a little bit of disagreement about Marmoush, but let's move on to some of their defensive signings they've made in Khusanov and Victor Reis. I've been told that that's how you pronounce it in Portuguese. My Portuguese pronunciation is terrible. But Khusanov, really highly rated. He turns 21 next month. Reis only just turned 19. So these are clearly signings for the future. But John Stones has had so many injury issues for Man City over the last few years. I don't think Ruben Dias has been at his absolute best so far this season, although you still, you're not selling him by any stretch of the imagination. Ake's had injury issues. Akanji's approaching 30. And you look at the average age of that City squad, all of a sudden, it's got quite old. Like Bernardo Silva, Gundogan, Walker, De Bruyne, all comfortably in their 30s. Ortega and Ederson too. Like they did need new blood. And what I've read of Khusanov, I'm not going to pretend that I watch Longs every week, but people are seriously impressed by this guy's physical profile and ability on the ball as well as an emerging centre-back in a Lens side that aren't one of the favourites to even qualify for the Champions League every year. They have in recent seasons, but they aren't a French superpower as it is. And Scouted Football, who do reports on Wonder Kids, described him as the Uzbek mind reader. He's so good at anticipating danger. So I'm intrigued to see how he does there. Mikey, quickly on Khusanov or Reis, which one do you think is more likely to get game time sooner, or is it just both for the future?
Hard to say, isn't it? I think, like you say, Khusanov, I think his probably the attribute that sticks out for him mainly at the moment is his aggression, his ability in the air. I think he's making nearly 4 tackles and interceptions a game. Brice Samba, who's also left Lens this month, I think that's significant to say. They are having a bit of a fire sale, I think, due to financial difficulties that they're in. I think they've made almost 100 million euros in sales since last summer. Brice Samba, who's a pretty imposing figure as a goalkeeper himself, has described Khusanov as a monster. So Man City are certainly getting a lot of aggression back there. I think he's been likened to Ruben Dias the most out of City's current defenders in terms of his defensive abilities. And I think on the ball, or at least his passing, maybe can improve, but obviously he's still really young.
Are we putting this in needs time, both of them?
I think probably, right? I think it's only sensible to. I don't know what you think.
Yeah,
Robbie.
100% needs time. You know what I mean? They both come with very high reputations as young players, but they're both emerging talents, aren't they? And it is, like you said, it is about bringing in. That is an aging squad. At City. And we've seen it this season, the way some of those players are getting run past, even Kyle Walker getting run past this season. So it's a sensible move, but they need time. It's the Premier League. We know it's not, Ligue 1, right? No disrespect to it. It's a different proposition altogether. You come up against international forwards every single week. So good signings, but they both need time.
Yeah, absolutely. Finally, let's talk about Kyle Walker potentially leaving Man City. We will cover other clubs as well. Just City have been, in terms of completed deals, really, really up there. So this is not official as we record, but it's expected to be completed. Kyle Walker moving to Milan. Robbie, it's been a really difficult 6-7 months, maybe even longer for Kyle Walker on and off the pitch, and it does feel like time is probably right to move on.
Yeah, I feel that, I was surprised at first when he was, they announced that he was looking to move. But obviously I feel it's more off the pitch, that he probably just wants a fresh start
away
somewhere.
From the media.
Yeah, no, you can't blame him, right? And I think it's a great move. AC Milan, it's a great club. I've been to the stadium a few times, and that place the atmosphere is incredible there. AC Milan are a huge club. I think it's a good move for him. I really do. He's done everything, hasn't he? He's done it all in the Premier League, apart from when he's at Tottenham. Right, he's done it all in the Premier League. And now, new pastures for him, and he's still playing at the highest level. I'm glad that he's done that move and not gone to, say, Saudi just to collect the money. He's still challenging himself, so good move.
Yeah, he must be a little frustrated that move to Bayern that was talked about. Was it the summer before last? Never really materialised for him.
It's long overdue. It's long overdue, though. But I mean, that was kind of up to him, wasn't it? He signed a new contract with City that summer. I think if he'd wanted that Bayern move, he could have got it
after the treble.
It feels overdue, and now it's kind of got to the point where, he's had this half season at City where I think City 11% win rate with him in the side, 65% win rate without him in the side. Like, he stayed long enough to not become a villain, because he's you can't be a villain at a club where you give him that much, but stayed long enough to become a liability. Whereas I think 2023 would have been the perfect time for him to leave. Like, on that subject though, I think that's where a signing like Khusanov is interesting because another attribute that is noted with him is his recovery pace. So I wonder whether in games where City are playing a particularly high line, whether Khusanov could maybe be even used as an auxiliary right back, just for the purpose of his recovery pace and his strength in the tackle. So it'll be interesting to see how Pep works him out there. And Kyle Walker, I guess, what does he come in just to replace Emerson? I know there's talk about him leaving this. So supposedly. So yes, that would be, an upgrade on a Milan defence, which actually, despite their troubles, have been fairly solid this season. So yeah, I think it's a great move for all parties. I'd put it in the love it category for sure.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'll go with love it for Kyle Walker as well. Robbie,
yeah, I'm going to go with love it as well.
Nice. I mean, Tomori potentially leaving Milan as well this month to Juventus, which is kind of crazy. Right, let's move on to one of the most expensive completed deals so far. Jaden Philogene, £20 million to Ipswich Town. Mikey, it's been difficult for him at Aston Villa, or was difficult for him at Aston Villa, but this is a really high potential player, isn't it?
Yeah, massively. I mean, he was one of the most exciting players in the Championship last year, 12 goals and 6 assists for Hull City. And he's got quite a lot of experience for a player of his age. He's had like multiple loans in the Championship. It's just making that step up in the Premier League, which has proven difficult. And I think we probably all would have thought he would have got more game time this season, especially with Moussa Diaby leaving Villa. The question mark I have is the right wing the position for him, because where he got most of his goals and assists last season for Hull was when he was playing on the left and he could cut inside on his right foot. Where Ipswich need the biggest upgrading quality is on the right wing. We're yet to see whether that's going to be his position long term. We've only seen, what was it, a 30-minute cameo against Man City on the weekend, where Ipswich did not really have much chance to attack. No. So I do wonder there. Equally, he's got a decent amount of experience at Villa now. He got 120 minutes in the Champions League as well, which I think will be invaluable to him long term. And his attacking numbers at Hull, just aside from the goals, were amazing. He was taking nearly 4 shots a game. So in terms of Ipswich having another goal threat aside from Liam Delap, because that's really what they've lacked. He could be invaluable. It's just whether it actually matches up in terms of him being that threat off the right. But yeah, Ipswich, I think, they've ranked bottom this year for expected goals in the league. I think only Southampton and Everton have scored fewer than them. And Leif Davis is creating so many chances off the left. So if the thinking is that we'll make Philogene more of a chance creator on the right, then I can see it a little bit more. But I just think they need another goal scorer in there, because like Liam Delap is really the only natural goal scorer in there. Like, I love Amari Hutchinson, but he's not a natural goal scorer. He's way more of a creative player, I think. Again, on the left, Jack Clark, more of a creative player. Even Smodics, amazing goal scoring record in the Championship last term, but is he that in the Prem? But equally, it's a great signing for if they go down, isn't it? Like, Philogene's got amazing Championship experience. Yeah. And
a lot of their signings are quite ready for the Championship.
Those clubs that come up from the Championship, they're almost too clever now, because they are making these very sustainable signings for if they go back down. Those are the kind of players that could pull them back up to the Premier League and keep them in that ecosystem where they can remain quite financially sustainable by just like coming up and down. So I think overall it's a decent move for a decent price. But yeah, and for Aston Villa, it's interesting because we'll get onto it. But Donyell Malen coming in for a similar fee is just a lot more ready-made, I think. Yeah. I don't know what you think about it, Robbie.
I like what you said about sustainable signing. I mean, that's a great word to put on it, because, like you said, his experience of playing in the Championship, will, if they do go down, all round, that's a very, very good signing for them. I'm really disappointed that Villa have let him go. What I mean? I just love to see when players of, British players given a chance. And he just wasn't given it. They signed him on a new deal. Only looks like now just to make a bit of money off of him. And then now you're bringing in Martin. You guys said we're going to get to that. But I don't know, man. I'm disappointed that he's not been given his chance at Villa, especially what I saw of him last year. He looked a really exciting player. Great. I think it's a great signing for Ipswich.
Yep.
It really is. And as I said, I like what you said about sustainability. You know what I mean? He did that all round a good signing.
Yeah.
But would I love him to have got a chance at Villa?
I feel like maybe he's a victim of like Morgan Rogers' form this season, because Villa's like left hand. They never have a proper winger playing on the left. Like John McGinn was playing a lot on the left last year, and you just think if Unai Emery, like, you can't fault him for the way that he's managed Villa over the last 2 years. It's been remarkable. But if they had a more proper left wing position in that side, then maybe Philogene would have got his chance. But it just feels like he's a bit of a victim of circumstance, maybe.
Yeah, I think a lot of Villa's business in the summer now looks, I know there's PSR concerns, but now looks a bit bizarre, to be totally honest. Like, they spent a lot of money on fairly, well, I wouldn't say average players, but players that weren't ready to make a difference in the first team. Like, Philogene's now left, Berenacea went on loan, Illing Jr. went on loan, they brought in Lewis Dobbin, Ross Barkley's barely played. It's only really Amadou Onana out of a huge summer outlay that has become a mainstay of their midfield. And look, I think he's been a great signing. But Philogene feels like he's been kind of passed around for financial reasons, and I think that's a bit of a shame. I totally agree with you about potentially getting some minutes on the left for Ipswich. Look, I love Jack Clarke. He was a huge hero for my club Sunderland last season, but he struggled in the Premier League so far. And I did sort of raise concerns that he is a real confidence player and needs a lot of backing and support to be able to do his kind of USP, which is beating men on the dribble. And playing in an Ipswich Town side that are under a fair amount of pressure every game has, really suffered, or his form has really suffered as a result. So let's see what happens there with Philogene. But I think we're all kind of saying for Ipswich Town, sort of love it at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm happy to put it there.
Nice. Okay, let's move on to Donyell Malen. I mean, Robbie, you saw Aston Villa firsthand at the weekend. 2-2 draw, unfortunately. Did it feel like Villa needed some key additions because of that weakness of their summer business this month? And do you think Malen can provide some competition for the likes of Leon Bailey on the right-hand side?
Well, listen, they've got a lot of pace up front. That's why I'm a bit surprised with the Malen signing, that they actually need Malen. But listen, it just adds to the pace and a player that will be hungry to succeed in the Premier League. He was at Arsenal. As a youngster. Didn't quite work out for him. He's gone. Did
you ever watch him in the academy?
I did see him once in the academy. He looks good, and I know people are, a couple of our guys that know him and have watched him play, and they said he was a good player. And he's done well in Germany, done very, very well, and he's got his chance now he's a Dutch international as well. I think it's a good signing. I just like, I would have liked to have seen Philogene get a chance, but I think he's going to be hungry to do well in the Premier League, because I think he's probably a player that always wanted to come back and do his thing. So I think it's in general it's a good signing. But like you said, it's a bit bizarre. They had Diaby, and then they sent him. Was he in Saudi now? Something like that. It's a bit. Some of their I don't know. They've made some very good signings. Don't get me wrong, but then some of them are a bit strange.
Even Ian Matson, who looked so promising at Dortmund last year, has barely played. And I know Luca Dean's had a really good year once again, but that feels slightly strange as well. Donyell Malen was great last year at Borussia Dortmund. I think great's an exaggeration maybe, but was one of their top scorers. I think only
13 goals.
Yeah, I think only Fulkrug scored more goals than him. Both have now left the club. Dortmund are a complete mess at the moment, to be honest. And Malen's probably got out at a good time, especially getting a move to a club with Champions League ambitions, still in the Champions League, and Aston Villa as well. You can't register players for the final 2 group games as well, but if Villa make the knockout stages, he can be registered and play in that, which could be really useful for the minutes around their squad. He's not arriving in the best of form this season. His shots per 90 and dribble success rate are actually at the lowest of his career, and he's only created 1 chance. So I'm saying that this signing maybe needs a bit more time than people think it does, but I still think it's a good, solid squad player. Mikey, would you agree?
I was going to say the same thing. I think it's a good depth signing. We talk about, we're talking off camera about like Arsenal needing more depth, and I guess this is the advantage that Villa have as a more mid-level side who are in the Champions League, but there isn't necessarily pressure on them to get top 4 again this season. They have a bigger pool of players to choose from in terms of being able to just be like, 20 million on this guy who can be a backup to Leon Bailey on the right. Like the difference in quality there is not that massive. Whereas when you're one of the bigger clubs, even Man City spending all that money on Marmoush, you just don't know if there's going to be a drop off there of them coming into a much bigger club that they're not used to. I think Donyell Malen, I don't think there's going to be that trouble with him. I think he's not had that much game time at Dortmund this season compared to last year. I don't think there's going to be a shock there. I think he's the kind of player who comes into a club, Unai Emery with an arm around his shoulder, he could get the best out of him very quickly, because we know that he's a really good manager, and just coming into a club that has been on the up over the last few years could be exactly what he needs.
Nice. Let's give that the needs time one. Let's talk about Romain Esse going to Crystal Palace from Millwall. Robbie, I'm not sure whether this is someone you've heard a lot about, just being very heavily involved in the London sort of football scene. And also for Crystal Palace, after a slow start to the season, they've really got it together. Unfortunately, they've now lost Chalobah, who's been recalled by Chelsea. But the likes of Ismaila Sarr, who they signed in the summer, is now really starting to click at Crystal Palace. Do you think this is a good addition for them?
I do. He looks like a very exciting player. I don't know a lot about him, but just in reading up on him, it's kind of like, it's giving you that Michael Esse vibes, isn't it? You know what I mean? When they brought him in from Reading. Although Esse, a lot of teams knew about him. I was surprised that a lot of teams didn't go for him, but this sort of sounds, even the name sounds similar. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But this sounds like another one of those signings that could be a bit of genius by Crystal Palace. You know what I mean? And I'm really excited to see him playing at that higher level.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the way they've used the Championship in recent years with Wharton and Eze and Elise, they are kind of the kings of the Premier League in signing top Championship talent.
And there's some great players down in the Championship, Absolutely. You know what I mean? And a lot of those players in recent years, it always used to be this thing, can they make the transition? But a lot of players that have come from the Championship in recent years have made that transition. You think of guys like Antonin and that, who have. So, this is a really, really interesting signing.
Yeah, really absolutely. Is. And Ivan Toney, James Maddison spent a lot of time in the Championship and out on loan in different clubs as well. I mean,
even guys like Mitrovic was in the, people are like, would he be able to do it in the Premier League? He came up, did it in the Premier League, There's some good players down there that, they're ready for that step up.
I totally agree. Mikey, are you putting this in the needs time category just because of his age?
I was considering going for Lovett, just because I think the price is amazing, like £12 million. You can't really go wrong. I think even if Esse wasn't to, rip up trees at Palace, I still think because of his age, the fact he's English, the fact that he's got so much potential, he's a really good dribbler. I just feel like they would still end up making money on him. Like they would still end up making money if they were to sell. But yeah, maybe needs time because he's coming into a slightly different system here. He can play attacking midfield. He's played mainly on the wing for Millwall. So yeah, the only reservation I'd have is maybe like him coming into that 3-4-2-1 system. Also, is he going to be able to displace Ismaila Sarr as the right inside forward just yet? Probably not. So yeah, I guess he does need time. But I think the thing that really stacks in his favour is the physical side. Like I think Neve was talking about him a couple of weeks ago on this show. He gets kicked so much in the Championship. I think he's won more fouls than anyone else in the Championship this year. I think he might have completed more dribbles as well, but also is super aggressive. I think he ranks really highly, 4 tackles, 1 as well in the Championship. So in terms of like tracking back, in terms of, riding challenges, the physical side of the Premier League shouldn't be as big a shock to him as it would be for another Championship forward who maybe isn't as involved in that sense. So I think that side of things, he should be pretty good with. But yeah, I can't see him displacing Ismaila Sarr just yet.
I love it. I'll put him in the love it category as well.
Let's do it.
Okay, I'm happy to.
Yeah, because he's exciting, he's fresh. He will be given time because there's no rush. If I was a Palace fan, I'd love that signing.
It's also a perfect move for Esse himself. And also, speaking of Palace fans, like he's a South London boy. Just moving from Millwall to Crystal Palace, it's the perfect career move really for a 19-year-old boy from South London. And yeah, if he'll be loved by Palace fans just as a result.
See a
of being
player
local.
That's going to grow in it. Like he's going to be hungry. He's going to grow. It's an English player getting a chance at the highest level. I love it.
Let's do it.
Sweet.
Let's do it. Let's
Nice.
put in and love it. Also, great to see a Millwall player in the Premier League. It's been a while since Millwall have even got anywhere close to the playoffs.
Tim Cahill to Everton. That's all I can think. All
exactly.
I can remember.
Mikey, let's talk about Emmanuel Agbadou. I know you were
Right.
doing some research into this player ahead of this show.
Yeah, I mean, he's just come in, hasn't he? And a tough start, 3-0 loss to Newcastle, 3-1 loss to Chelsea. But again, those aren't the games that Wolves are going to need to get results from to stay up this year. They've got tough games coming up as well. Arsenal, Villa, Liverpool and Bournemouth are their next 4. But I feel like we'll really see the fruits of this come kind of March when they've got Everton, Southampton, West Ham and Ipswich in a row. And that's where I feel like Wolves will probably secure their safety. But in terms of
this signing, it has a little bit more pressure on it than someone like Esse, for example, to kind of hit the ground running, though.
Oh, massively. Because it's you're coming into a problem area at Wolves. Defensively, they've been all over the shop this season.
For the year.
Yeah, like at the Kilman sale that we spoke a ton about this year. This was a player who I think when Vitor Pereira came in, I think apparently they were both on the same wavelength, both him and the recruitment team at Wolves, in terms of like a player in this exact profile as who Wolves need to bring in. So at least there's some joined up thinking there. He is experienced. He's 27 years old. He's massive. He's 6'4", decent aerial win rate. So yeah, I think on paper this is a good signing, and also for a decent price as well. I guess my one reservation is that could Wolves have been more punchy? I'm not so sure, because maybe for under £20 million, this was the best player they could have got.
It doesn't really fit in Love It or needs time.
I think Wolves needed an experienced, maybe even Premier League defender. When you see they've got the worst record in the league from things like set pieces, their defence is what is letting them down game after game, right? There's also a lot of problems at Wolves at the moment. The captain Lamina wants to leave. The Cunha seems to be stirring up to leave. It's a bit of a mess there. Is this the right environment to bring in a player like that, or did you need somebody, an old pro?
Running.
Like last year when I had Dawson, right? Them a guy's been there, done it, does it in the Premier League. I think that's what they needed right now. I'm not saying that he's a bad player. He looks imposing. He looks like it, but he's definitely in a needs time category. Mm-hmm. But they ain't got time.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's just how I look at it.
Let's put him in needs time.
One thing I will say, he was named club captain of Rants last season, so I do at least he will have that natural leadership ability which he'll bring in there. But I do agree. I think almost any centre back that Wolves could have signed this January who didn't have a ton of Premier League experience was going to be a risk. So yeah, I think he does need time. And also it's hard to come into Wolves when they've got such a hard run of games. And like you say, everything that's going on, it's not really the player's fault, but it's difficult to say you love it.
Joining a foreign country in the middle of a season in a side that are struggling defensively, I think that's a big ask for him. Let's move on to Antonin Kinsky, £12.5 million to Spurs. Now, Robbie, you saw him firsthand last week in the North London derby. Very brave, some would say foolish, but I think that's managerial instruction.
Yeah.
He's had a difficult start. I mean, he played phenomenally well on his debut against Liverpool in the Carabao Cup, but since then a little bit shaky. I mean, what have you made of him?
Yeah, I mean, if I was just going off of the game that I saw him in, he looked awful.
Yeah.
Right, because his distribution was terrible. He kept getting caught. He was a very lucky boy that night that some of his errors didn't lead to goals, right?
Weak for the Trossard goal as well, I think.
Yeah, and he should have saved that goal. But it's a bit harsh, isn't it? Because, he's literally come in. It's like an emergency signing, isn't it? Because of the amount of injuries they've got in the goalkeeping area. But like you said, in that first game, he looked really good. He looked really accomplished. He looks like a confident person. I think long term, it is going to be a decent backup to Vicario. I really do think that long term. But again, I look on it and think, should they have brought in someone with a bit more experience at this time to cover, till the end of the season? Because, you're throwing somebody into the Lions den, and the way they play, everything constantly playing out from the back. So, somebody's got to say to him, you've got to go long sometimes. But then is that an instruction?
Yeah,
I think it's
it-
like, don't worry about it, just stick to that. We just continue to be brave. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the difficulty, isn't it? It does feel like it's managerial
It's
instruction.
going to need time, definitely, for me, that one, because, he's young and he's and you're coming into a team that's not playing well.
Well,
and it's
also,
not
this was
defending
his
well,
first-
and half of the players are missing. So,
having that makeshift back line in front
He's
of you.
only
must
got
be a
6 months of
nightmare.
experience as well at Slavia Prague as well. So it's not like he's been playing for years even in the Czech league.
He's a strange one for me. For me, that needed somebody of experience to come in at that time. And that's why, for me, that's a definite needs time one, because he does need time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I saw Spurs this morning linked with Tyler Dibbling as well, who's been linked with RB Leipzig. If I was Tyler Dibbling, I think I'd move to Germany as well. It's so exciting for him
He
as
is a
well.
good
Look
player.
at what Gittins and Sancho and Bellingham have done over there. Look at the pathway that RB Leipzig make for players. Like, a lot of those players necessarily haven't nailed their next move from Leipzig, but the pathway there, I think, is the one to do. I would stay away from a top 6 club if I was Tyler Dibbling. I can see you becoming a bench player at United, Chelsea, even Spurs to a certain degree, given the fact they've extended Son's contract. So I'd 100% go to RB Leipzig, but that's a side note from Spurs. Let's go with needs time for Kinsky. Trevoh Chalobah back to Chelsea. What a performance last night, coming back against Wolves. Obviously, it's a little bit easier being recalled from loan and you're playing with teammates you've known for a long time in a stadium you're familiar with. But still, after everything he's been through over the last 6 months, being jettisoned from the squad, being frozen out effectively, joins Crystal Palace, forms a really nice partnership with Lacroix and Gay, and then gets recalled mid-season and has his shirt number, which he'd dedicated to his late mother, taken away. It was given to João Felix. He returns to the club and yet still puts in that performance against Wolves. I thought it was an amazing display from Trevoh Chalobah, and needed as well, because Fofana's out for the season. The futures of Badiashile, Disasi, even Tosin don't feel completely secure at Chelsea. I think this is a great signing for Chelsea. I'm a little bit upset for Crystal Palace fans. I'm sure they might feel a little bit aggrieved, although Chris Richards has finally got his body going and feels like he's going to be able to stay hopefully a little bit fitter towards the end of the year. But I'm putting this firmly in a very good category for Chelsea. But for Chalobah, it's obviously mixed emotions, Mikey.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? But I mean, I think you kind of just have to take it, isn't it? It's despite everything, and he was, I think, treated really badly last summer, it's still that career opportunity, isn't it? At 25 years old, it's just like, there's this chance, isn't there? Like Wesley Fofana, like, he was really good in the first half of this season, but the only really prolonged period we've seen him in a Chelsea shirt. Like, I think if Trevoh Chalobah can have a big 6 months here at Chelsea, then I think he can lay a really good claim to being Levi Colwill's long-term partner potentially. And in a Chelsea team, which I think will be expecting to challenge for the title next season, I think that's massive for him. So just having that staying power, I think, is massive for him. Then again, it is an ambitious Chelsea team. They may well try and go for an upgrade in the summer as well. So there's no guarantees there. But even then, it could lead to him getting a bigger move as well. So I guess I would put it in the love it category. I probably would. Yeah, I'm aware that we've been quite kind. We haven't put any of these transfers in the not sure category yet, or in the not a fan. So maybe we'll get onto those. But
Maybe
so far,
we will. I think, to be fair, I was quite harsh on Donyell Malen. Maybe I should have put him in that category personally, but I think there was a bit of a disagreement.
we could move him down.
Chalobah, listen, you got to love it, because it's a great deal for Chelsea. His experience is all the things I was just saying about with Wolves, right? Like, this guy, he'll hit the ground running. He's already been playing in the Premier League. He's been doing brilliantly for Palace. I do feel sorry for Palace. He had a great partnership that he struck up in defence there. If I was him, I would have told him, get lost, I want to stay here. But that's me. Yeah. But he's a professional, and he's done a professional thing. My only thing is that I just get the feeling with Chelsea, right? Maybe I'm being a bit biased as an Arsenal fan, right? That he'll play well from now till the end of the season, and they'll still sell him. Pure profit. Guy that's come through the ranks, sell him, and then go and get someone else. And this is the thing that annoys me sometimes, when English players don't get a chance. He's a very, very good defender, as he's gone away and proven. Better than what they've gone out and bought, right? So give him a chance. Let him stay there beyond, this season, but I bet you any money, come the end of the season, even if he does well, he'll be moved on, big fee, pure profit for their PSR, so they can go out and get that other big name that may not come and work.
But it's so
you gotta love that sign,
and it feels so nonsensical, doesn't it? If they were to do that, because they've obviously done that over the last couple of years with academy players to fund moves for Disassi, Badiashile, which generally speaking haven't
average
worked
players.
out,
Really, let's be real. Those have been average players, right? And you've had better players on your books who plays for your club, has come through since the age of 8 years old, who knows the club inside out, will die for the club, right? And he's the one that gets treated like that.
Chelsea need to have a big squad as well. It's not like Trevoh Chalobah has to be the starting centre-back at Chelsea, but he's such a useful squad player that next season when they're, I expect them to qualify for the Champions League, they're going to need a bigger squad once again. I know the Conference League this year has already put that into play, but yeah, Chelsea need a big squad, and they're pretty well covered in other areas of the pitch, but centre-back is the one area where, they're still pretty thin in that sense.
Nice one. Let us move on. Let's talk about Antony, and then we'll just briefly touch on a few European transfers outside the Premier League as well. But Antony has secured a loan move to Real Betis. There's no buy option in this one. I think this is a very good move for Antony. I'm surprised Real Betis have gone for him, if I'm totally honest. Although, having said that, they are, I think, 12th in La Liga. I don't think any side in Europe has underperformed their XG more. And they are, at the moment, relying on the goals of Giovanni Lo Celso, who has been excellent so far this season, Vitor Roque, who is slightly faded after a really good sort of October time, and Chimiavia, who is a little bit of a hothead and quite regularly injured. So maybe Antony can provide some spark in this Real Betis side. But to be honest, I thought he was going to have to end up in somewhere like Olympiacos or Fenerbahce or Galatasaray or something, just because of the difficulty he's had at Man United. I mean, from a Man United perspective, Mikey, your club, of course.
Yeah.
Are you just pleased to see him off the books for 6 months? Hopefully he does well at Real Betis and you can sell him for a huge loss this summer. Or are you frustrated that you didn't get rid of him permanently this window?
I think it's always hard to get rid of underperforming players from Man United, overpriced players from Man United, especially in January for a fee. United have very rarely been able to do that, even loans with option to buy, like the Sancho obligation to buy still had to be done at a massive loss. In some ways, I think it suits both parties just about, but it's hard to really say from a United perspective that anything's really a positive when it comes to Antony and offloading him, because either way United will have to sell for a big loss. But I guess the hope is that if he can get if he could get 5 goals and 5 assists for Betis, that would be an amazing second half of the season.
Can't see it.
I don't know.
You said we haven't put one in Not a Fan. I'm putting this one in Not a Fan.
It's always going to be a bit of a negative because United are going to come out losers from this anyway. But that damage was done really in 2022. I mean, Antony, amazing. Looking back at it, Antony has not started 25 league games since arriving at Ajax back in 2020. He's never been an ever-present in any side that he's been in, even though he did show some very promising signs at Ajax.
Particularly in the Champions
League. So that is just always going to be a question mark over him, I think, as long as his career lasts. No manager has ever trusted him to be the main man of a side. And what is it, 140 minutes in the Premier League this season? He's really got to hope for a career revival here.
I'm in the not sure category even with Betis.
Yeah.
Just for the fact that I've just never seen him do anything right. The only thing I've seen him do actually is the first goal he ever scored. Yeah. Who was that against?
Arsenal.
Us. Yeah. Arsenal. It was a great goal. Yeah, he curled that in. He cut in and curled it in.
Yeah.
And I think after that, the defenders were like, that's all he's got. He cuts in and curls it in. So they locked that off and he's done nothing since. And I heard somebody yesterday describe him as the pound for pound, the worst ever Premier League signing. And, you can't argue with that. It cost a lot of money. And I'm not even sure if he's going to go there and do anything. Honestly, he's looked that bad.
Yeah, I remember when Anthony Martial went to Sevilla and everyone thought, oh, here we go, he's going to really light up the Spanish league. He really struggled. It's very difficult when you've been playing so little football. His confidence must be absolutely on the floor. to go to a league which may not be as entertaining as it was 10 years ago, but it's really solid defensively. Like, there's very few high-scoring games in La Liga.
And the thing is, you're going, right? So you know that even it's a loan move, right? You know, sometimes players go on loan, like a Chalobah, he might say, right, I'm going to go and prove Chelsea wrong. Let me go and show them, right, why I should be here, with the hope that maybe at the end of the season they might bring me back, or I get a huge move to somewhere else. He's not going back to United, and he's not going to somewhere big after Betis.
Yeah.
No, he's not, Barcelona or someone like that ain't going to come along and sign him. I don't think so anyway. So
Yeah,
I'm
the
not
success
sure.
of the move might make United an extra £10 million, but I can't imagine, even if it goes really well, Man United being able to sell him for over £30 million, if I'm totally honest. I think the difference is 20, maybe even 15, as low as that, to 30. But I don't think this is going to make a huge difference from Man United's perspective. Let's talk about some moves outside the Premier League just to wrap up the show quickly. Khvicha Kvaratskhelia has gone to PSG. Robbie, was that a move that you saw and thought, hang on, Arsenal should have been involved for that?
Yeah, it was. Anytime I see any player of the highest quality going somewhere, I'm like, why didn't we take a look at that? We all saw what he did at Napoli when they won the league. A really, really exciting play. Even when he was playing for Georgia in the Champions, in the European Euros, he looked really good then. I think it's a really good signing for PSG, an exciting signing. He's not really, the only thing I'd say is a winger. He's not an out-and-out winger, get down. He kind of plays in a particular way, but he's a top-quality player. And I think that's a good signing for PSG.
Yeah. I don't think you can ever really complain when a club like, any club signs a very, very top player for reasonable money as well. I don't think the fee's crazy for someone that's played as well as he has.
So in the summer, they were talking over 100 million for him.
Yeah.
So I think they've got him for a decent price.
What's it now, 80 million euros?
I think it's 80 million euros.
It's still quite a big fee for a player who's coming in, and Bradley Barcola, at least up until December time, was arguably PSG's best player this season.
That's the thing that surprised me. Yeah, you're right. Sorry to interject into you, but that's the thing that surprised me. That did they need him? Again, you got an up and coming player doing really, really well. What happens to him? What have they got other plans for?
That's the thing.
It's not nearly as effective off the right though. So they're both left wingers.
That's what makes me a bit unsure about this. Was it the best use of PSG's resources when the striker position is still pretty dead there? Haven't been able to utilise anyone. I know Luis Enrique likes to use someone like Asensio there over a conventional centre forward, but like long-term planning wise, that doesn't seem the most wise use of resources. Does it mean that PSG are, does that mean that Barcola's place in this PSG side is up for debate and maybe they'll end up selling him? Like, again, he's younger than Kvaratskhelia as well. And then also, is it the best move for Kvaratskhelia? Maybe he felt like it was kind of now or never, and if he was going to make that next move and get that big paycheck at another club, maybe now was the time to do it. But yeah, I don't know, a difficult one for me. I'm unsure about it. As good as he is, and I'm sure he will absolutely rip up Liga, and he's got that Champions League pedigree as well. I don't know, just a big fee, a little bit like with Marmoush. It's just a massive fee, and in January as well, it's like. January moves like that, they always feel like that there hasn't been quite as much thinking behind them. There are very few massive January moves that I think have worked out. Like Van Dijk, of course, but aside from that, it's hard to think of like a 80+ million euro player.
I do get your point about the lack of thinking, but the fact that he felt like he was only ever going to go to PSG this month makes me think that they did quite a lot of groundwork in the summer for this move. So I feel like they did really consider it for a long time, because it was basically like Khvicha's leaving Napoli. Oh, he's going to PSG. And like 2 days later, and Arsenal and Liverpool didn't really get involved despite speculation. I get what you mean about the fit, but I do think this is he's ahead of Barcola right now. I'm a little bit concerned that they're only 3 years apart in age, because Barcola's basically going to have his development a little bit stymied. But the biggest issue that I have with this is he can't play in the Champions League, and PSG are really up against it in the Champions League. They are currently outside the even spots to get in the playoff for the last 16, and they've got a game against Man City, which you'll know the result of by the time this video goes live. And then I think it's a fairly challenging last game as well. So it does feel like the impact they needed most for was probably the Champions League, and he probably can't be registered. You can't be registered unless they make the knockouts, which I think would be the first time since 2011-12 that they haven't made the knockouts, which, given the fact that Nasser Al-Khelaifi was one of the key reasons behind the expanded Champions League. He's been pushing it for so long, is a massive source of embarrassment for the club. So I think we're a little bit. Where are we putting that? Love it, needs time, not sure.
No, I'm in the love it category because I think they pulled a coup off. I think loads of clubs. If his summer would have come, loads of clubs would have been interested in him.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, they've just been able to just go in there like that and pull that off cheaper than the 100 million that was being quoted. I'm kind of in the love it category.
I need a category between love it and needs time. I need it's nice.
Should we just put it on the cusp?
Yeah. I think that kind of works. Right, let's quickly just do 2 more deals. Kolo Muani on loan to Juventus, Mikey. This is a great opportunity for Kolo Muani, not been playing regularly at PSG. Juve drawing a lot of games in Serie A. I think they're one of 2 unbeaten sides in Europe's top 5 leagues, along with PSG. But far too many draws. They need some more options.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's only a loan as well. I think it's a decent move. I think with Juve, especially signing a striker like Kolo Muani, who's a bit of jack of all trades. I don't know. He's a really good footballer, Kolo Muani.
Can play wide.
And I think can play wide. I like it. Maybe needs time just because there's this Juve side. I don't know. It's quite a lot of pressure for him to come in and be like, you've got to be better than Vlahovic. But yeah, I'll say he needs time with this one just because we haven't seen Muani at his best since his Frankfurt days. It's been 18 months now.
He was amazing at Frankfurt though. I think
he was brilliant.
43 goals and assists in 50 games. He was amazing. I think he did deserve a move. It was maybe slightly overpriced when he went to PSG. Robbie, do you think Vlahovic could enter the discussion in the last 10 days of this window for a move to Arsenal?
I think possibly yes, because I'm surprised that Muani's decided to go there. Normally, a player goes on loan as a striker. You've been given some sort of guarantees on playing time, surely. You know what I mean? So I'm surprised. I think the Muani move I'm not sure on, because we haven't seen him perform for so long. But it's nothing to lose for Juventus because it's a loan and there's no obligations or nothing. But yeah, on the Vlahovic thing, how must he be feeling? He hasn't he hasn't done an extension to his contract. 18 months, I think, left. I think there is a chance that Arsenal could make a move for him, or even Man United has been talk of them as well before the end of this window. It's going to be interesting. Yep. That's going to be one to watch, I think.
For sure. I mean, Milik, their backup striker, has been injured for the entirety of the season as well. So either way, they did need a striker this month. Going to wrap up, guys, with a quick mention of Enzo Lefebvre, who's joined my club Sunderland on loan. Hasn't played a lot of minutes over the last 2 seasons at Roma and Rennes. Roma really didn't need him. They've got so many central midfielders, Cristante, Pellegrini, Dybala in front. They also brought in Claudio Kone. They got Paredes. He didn't get a lot of minutes there. But under Lorient, under our manager Régis Lebris a few years ago, he was absolutely phenomenal. Like one of Ligue 1's best players. His creativity in terms of expected assists per 90 wasn't far off Mbappe. He got 5 goals, he got 5 assists. He was in the top 10 for defensive actions, 6th for chances created. He was amazing, and I'm so excited that he's at my club, Sunderland. He had a great debut playing on the left of a 4-4-2 against Burnley on Friday night. Obviously, the big talking point on the back of that was the fact we missed 2 penalties, which was really, really gutting. But I think he could make a massive impact at Sunderland, especially with the fact that if that move goes well, Sunderland, I think, might end up with the playoffs. Maybe we'll get up to the Premier League, but either way, it feels like Joe Bellingham will probably leave in the summer. Maybe we can persuade him, if we go up, to sign permanently for Sunderland. But I'm putting that firmly in the love it category for me.
Yeah, I love it as well.
Robbie, come on.
Not sure if he can do it on a cold night up in the northeast.
We will see. Guys, that is the lowdown for another week. Those are all our thoughts on every completed deal this January to date. We actually had a bit of disagreement throughout that show on where to categorise them. So make sure you're at us in the comments, saying where we were wrong, saying where we were right. Huge thank you to Robbie for jumping on the show this week, and we'll catch you next week. Bye-bye.